I'd ask unanimous consent that the quorum call be dispensed with.
Without objection.
Madam President, last week, Vladimir Putin's war on Ukraine hit the one-year mark. 1 year of death and destruction across Ukraine, 1 year of lies and gaslighting from the Russian government and its paid-off cronies, 1 year of atrocious war crimes committed against innocent people. It's been an unimaginable year of hardship for the Ukrainian people, and it's ushered in a period of global unity not seen in a generation. 1 year ago, democracies around the world united in support of the Ukrainian people. The U.S. and our allies condemned President Putin's unwarranted invasion and took decisive action to help the Ukrainians shape the outcome of this war. Sanctions against Russia, military aid for Ukraine, humanitarian assistance for innocent people who are bearing the true cost of Russia's brutality. It's been a difficult year fueled by both victories and setbacks, but I remain confident and inspired by the courage and the capabilities of the Ukrainian people. At the start of this war, no one expected Ukraine to keep up the fight as long as it has lasted. They were outmanned, outgunned, and it seemed like a matter of when Ukraine would be defeated, not if. Over the last 12 months, though, we've witnessed heroic strength and fortitude by the Ukrainian forces and civilians. We've seen a series of setbacks by the Russian army, which was once thought to be among the most capable in the world. As we mark the one-year anniversary of this war, the big question in everyone's mind is, what comes next? General David Petraeus once said the most important question to ask in any conflict is, how does this end? And in this case, we don't have a clear answer. There's no resolution on the horizon, which has caused many people to doubt America's involvement. Over the last year, our country has made serious investments in Ukrainian victory in the form of weapons, equipment, training, and humanitarian aid. These contributions have been integral to Ukraine's success so far, but they have not come without cost. There's the financial cost, which is always a big concern, particularly with $30 trillion debt, as well as a prospect of recession as a result of the Federal Reserve's tightening interest rates in order to stave off the impact of inflation. There's also the impact on our own military readiness. Our weapons stockpiles have dwindled, and the timeline for replenishment is far too lengthy. I've heard from my constituents back home in Texas who are deeply concerned about what these costs will mean here at home, and I understand exactly where they're coming from. This is a tough time for American families due to the ravages of inflation and the uncertainty about their economic future. Our own interests must always come first. The point that keeps getting lost in this war is that a Ukrainian victory is in our national interest. It's important to our security here at home. America's assistance is not a handout. It's not a charity project. And as much as we want to see Ukraine prevail in this war, our financial support is not entirely altruistic. The United States isn't just investing in Ukrainian victory. We're also putting our resources toward the defeat of Russian aggression. If history has taught us anything, it's taught us that power-hungry dictators do not accept small gains and call it a day. They just keep on pushing. You don't have to go back very far in our history books to find a good example. In 2005, President Vladimir Putin said that the collapse of the Soviet Empire was the greatest geopolitical catastrophe of the century. And clearly, he's doing everything he can to try to reconstitute the former Soviet Union. President Putin has used his time in power to rebuild Russia's military and try to redraw the map of Europe. In 2008, Russia invaded the nation of Georgia. In 2014, it invaded Ukraine for the first time since the end of the Cold War, taking the Crimea region. Of course, true to form, Putin's appetite for conquest was not satisfied. If anything, it made him more hungry for power. And the message that we sent by doing nothing in 2005 and 2014, the message was he could take all he wanted and there would be no consequence. But this time we can't make the same mistake. Putin must understand that Russian aggression will not be tolerated. The outcome of this war will determine how Putin's quest proceeds in the future. Will he continue to intimidate neighbors in Europe and invade sovereign nations, or will he crawl back to Moscow, tail tucked between his legs? The answer to those questions are very important. Despite the fact that American troops are not engaged in this war, that could change in an instant. If the next chapter of Putin's war includes the invasion of a NATO partner, the United States and our allies will no longer be on the sidelines. We will be part of the starting lineup. Collective defense is at the heart of NATO's founding, and Article 5 of that founding treaty makes clear that an attack against one member nation is an attack against all. Suffice it to say, I hope and pray we will never reach the point where the collective defense clause is invoked. The most effective way to keep American troops out of the line of fire is to help the Ukrainians stop Putin now, before his conquest moves even further west. As though the stakes weren't high enough already, we know it's not just the scope of Putin's power that's at stake here. The rest of the world is watching as well to see how the U.S. and our NATO allies respond to this power-hungry dictator. If we fail to support the Ukrainians in this pivotal moment, other authoritarian governments will take note. Today, the problem is Russia. Tomorrow, the problem could be the People's Republic of China. President Xi Jinping has made no secret of his desire to capture Taiwan. He's called it unification, and he's even offered details about what sort of timeline we might expect. Of course, we found, as with Mr. Putin, when one person is making that decision, that person can make a decision to go at any time. But President Xi said he wants to be ready to unify the People's Republic of China with Taiwan by 2027, just 4 years from now. There's no question that President Xi is paying close attention to the world's response to Russian aggression. If the U.S. and its allies respond with passivity, the Chinese Communist Party will expect to be met with the same level of weakness. As a matter of fact, I believe that President Putin was shocked to see the Ukrainians demonstrate their will to resist Russian aggression, and that the other democracies in the world have come to its aid, particularly after the embarrassing, precipitous withdrawal from Afghanistan by the Biden administration without even notifying our NATO allies. And of course, we know what happened. The leadership of the Afghan government was spirited off in an airplane to another country, and the Taliban walked in without a shot being fired. I think after Mr. Putin saw that in Afghanistan, he thought, well, maybe I can do the same thing in Ukraine. Well, a passive response to this sort of aggression would risk further instability and hurt the cause of peace, to say the least. And it would inevitably diminish America's leadership position in the global order. That's why the tyrants and the madman of the world must see the United States and our allies respond with strength. That's the only way to assure long-term security and stability. Last spring, like many of our colleagues, I had the opportunity to travel to Ukraine. This time, last May, was with Senator McConnell, the Republican leader, Senator Collins, and Senator Barrasso. We had the pleasure of meeting with President Zelensky and affirming America's commitment to a Ukrainian victory. 1 year into this war, my resolve is not softened. Our resolve cannot soften either. The United States and our allies must remain steadfast in our support of the Ukrainian people, not just for their sake, but for our sake as well. Through strategic investments with ample oversight and accountability, those are important, we'll continue to shape the outcome of this war by giving the Ukrainian people everything they need in order to prevail. And in doing so, we'll send a clear message to Russia and China and any other authoritarian dictator that aggression against a sovereign nation will not be ignored. Again, it is our own national interest that is at stake here. This war cannot end with a Russian victory. Madam President, I yield the floor.
Madam President.
Senior Senator from Illinois.
Madam President.